I'm good with chopsticks. Like I don't normally have very many problems.
No, you're
but the
solid.
metal ones, I
Yeah.
have problems. I was struggling.
Yeah,
and
he
I'm
was like dropping the
perspirating,
meat. Yeah.
and I'm like,
What are we drinking today?
today we're gonna drink some tea because I sound like this.
That's delicious.
That is soothing to the throat. I feel pretty good, but I sound like a smoker who's in their 40s and a puberty teen at the same time because my voice is always cracking.
This week was quite the week for us.
Yeah, big week.
Ryan met my parents for the first time after many, many years.
As well as your brother. Your brother and his
Oh,
girlfriend
yeah,
were there
but
as
you've, I guess, kind of...
well. I ran into them.
Yeah, but I guess this is your first time really chatting with them. So, big week, and we're just gonna kind of unpack everything that happened, kind of like a debriefing
big
for you
debrief,
guys,
guys.
but also like for us as well, because it was a lot different than me meeting your mom. So I think before we get started, a little bit of background info on my parents and kind of family history. I talked a little bit about it in that like religion episode, but my parents are very, very devout Christian, conservatives, Korean,
Yeah.
triple homicide. So I really just was not too sure how this was gonna go. And I was mainly concerned about the language barrier because my parents don't really speak English. Like they only speak conversational English that they can get by at work with. Other than that, their entire community is 100% Korean. And I think that, along with the triple threat, was my kind of biggest concern is that, you know, we're going to be at this dinner table and everyone's going to be silent.
I think it was interesting when I first met your parents because, like, we get to the table, we went for a Korean barbecue. And we
Yeah,
get to
set the scene, set the scene.
So, like, we go to Korean barbecue and
Yeah.
we walk in and, like, first thing, like, his dad gets up, shakes my hand. I wave at his mom because she's in, like, the opposite corner as me.
Yeah.
And
Did she shake your hand too?
not at first because I didn't want to reach over the entire table and like there's food already on it. And then we just like sat down and I was so quiet.
Yeah.
I think it was like, there wasn't really a lot of like conversation between us. Like it was never like I think with my
No.
mom and meeting you, it was a
Yeah.
lot more. Hey, how are you? I know you based on this. And like,
Yeah. And I could really carry that conversation as well because I'm able to ask questions, which you were not able to do. But even before we got there, you know, I kind of set the expectation for you that like, be 100% okay not talking because this dinner really isn't about talking to each other or getting to know my parents on like a verbal level. It's just like being amongst each other's presence. That was like the main focus of this dinner.
it wasn't even the dinner wasn't even about meeting me, having your brother, having you, and then like your partners.
Yeah, also there. Also, what really helped was, because my brother and his girlfriend were also visiting town at the same time, they were also at the dinner. I texted him before, be like, hey, Ryan's super nervous, so make sure that you talk to Ryan. Because my brother is also not the most talkative guy either, so I was just like, hey, you're really gonna need to put in some work. I think he did. He was,
Definitely. As much as like I wanted to be like asking questions, I was just petrified.
Yeah,
I think
Ryan also isn't the best at asking questions
No,
either.
I'm not a great question asker.
You're more of a question responder.
Yeah, it's not that I'm not interested in other people's lives. I think it's just like I get stage fright in like conversations, and I'm like, unless we're doing something, then I don't really have anything to ask.
And before going into it, I asked my parents, I was like, so what are you gonna talk to Ryan about? Like, what is this dinner gonna be like? And then they were like, oh, what do you mean? We're just gonna say hi and we're gonna eat. So their full expectation was that we were just gonna eat together, not really get to know you better. Keep in mind, my mom watches like every single one of my weekly videos, so she already knows you to some extent. She knows your vibe. So the priority of this dinner was not to get to know each other better, but just kind of break the ice. Because now the initial meeting is done, it seems like a huge weight has been like lifted off our shoulders. Like even immediately after, as we were driving home, we were like, well, that was probably the heaviest like partner parent interaction that would have happened in our relationship, like checked off.
Yeah, I think also like this sets up for us to have a little bit better of a relationship with your brother and his girlfriend as well.
Yeah.
Because like coming into this experience, it was like all the pressure was on like meeting your parents.
Yeah.
And in that pressure being there, like meeting your brother, I'm like, oh, like I actually know your brother a little bit better. I know his girlfriend, and like I think that relationship is like something that we can develop over time as well. And I'm like, there's no pressure there.
And I think as you kind of just get to know them better, you are just naturally going to be more inclined to ask like genuine questions about how things are doing. He wants to eventually open up a restaurant. I don't know if he told you, but something that my mom told me when she asked her friends about their children's significant other who doesn't speak Korean is that it's always like this. You just say hi and then you have dinner. So I don't know. I guess it was kind of a little bit reassuring to hear that, okay, it's not just because you're queer. It's not just because you are a guy that they're not speaking to you. It's 100% because of the language barrier. And to some extent, I feel like having that language barrier was nice.
Yeah, it was safer.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Just because
like I couldn't get myself into too much trouble.
No, also they couldn't either. Yeah. Not that they would. I really, either, really. Yeah. And they coming into this, they were actually I feel like they were for the most part very open. Like they came into this dinner with no resentment, because if they did, they wouldn't have asked to meet you. And I think that's what I've waited for a while, is that my parents have come to visit Vancouver multiple times as we're dating, but there wasn't one time where there was like, oh, are we going to meet Ryan, or we want to meet Ryan, versus this time that was one of the expectations of them coming to Vancouver.
Like throughout the dinner, like your parents specifically showed different ways that they showed affection. And a lot of that, as you've represented in the past, is like by feeding somebody.
Right.
And
my mom was trying to give him some naengmyeon, which is like Korean cold noodle, but she like filled up this Ryan's entire bowl with literally to the top.
And it was like at the end of the meal. We were
already so full. Yeah.
And like then she's like, no, this is all for you, essentially.
Yeah.
And like your dad was like filling up my drink at one point, and like they were like looking after me in like making sure I've had enough, and like I think that that's something that resonated with me. It's like, hey, this is not just me being queer at this point. This is me and you and our relationship reflecting into your parenthood.
It went the best that it could have gone, given their background as Christian conservative Koreans. And I don't think I really could have asked for more. I don't think I could be mad at my parents, be like, why didn't you try and make more conversation, blah, 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 because that just wasn't my expectation. That wasn't your expectations. That wasn't their expectations either. So it really met all of our expectations, and it was fine.
And I didn't have to sit beside them.
Yeah, we were very like, I don't know if they planned the seating arrangement either.
I think we all kind of knew.
Yeah, because they were first, like my brother, girlfriend, and my parents. So I'm sure they were a little bit strategic to set a little bit of a buffer zone, because we were in the middle, or my brother and I were in the middle, you know, because we have to grill, but also, you know, to kind of, I don't know, sometimes I had to act as a little bit of a translator if, you know, something was going on. My mom has a really big laugh, so something's going on, I'm kind of translating what happened. And I feel like that's just going to be our dynamic, is that like I'm going to slowly kind of, you know, translate a little bit more for you. Maybe you'll pick up a little bit more Korean. And I think that's just how it's going to be. It's always going to be different than my dynamic with your parents.
I think one thing that was like really stuck out to me that I think is hilarious is, like at Korean restaurants, they use metal square chopsticks.
Oh yeah.
And like I'm good with chopsticks. Like I don't normally have very many problems.
No, you're
but
solid.
The metal ones, I have problems. I was struggling.
Yeah, and he was like dropping the meat.
And I'm like
The meat was going, and I was like, just let me do this. So I like put it on his
And
plate.
I was thinking in the back of my head is
Yeah.
like his parents are thinking like, get this guy a fork.
Yeah, this
I'm like,
fucking white guy comes in here.
I'm just embarrassing himself.
I think it was also a really good environment for them because they were at a Korean barbecue. They're familiar with the setting. They were talking to the restaurant staff in Korean, which they're never able to do in a regular restaurant. I'm always like talking on their behalf, ordering for them. But here, you know, they were able to ask for what they wanted. And I think they just felt more comfortable there. We initially were actually planning to do a cooking session at home, and they were gonna cook for us at home or at their Airbnb, which is another way that they would show their love and affection for us. But it would have been just too much work.
I put a damper on that. Joe was like, yeah,
Yeah.
we should do it. I'm like, no, they're not going to come here and cook. They
Yeah, but
need to take some time off. Like,
It's not that they're working, it's that's how they show their affection. Because even like I've never hugged my parents or said I love you to my parents in my like past, you know, I don't know, past 20 years, I want to say. So
change that.
maybe, but maybe it's also just like a difference in culture. Like we're not as vocal, but we just show our love in different ways. Not that one is better than the other, and I'm sure both can kind of mingle and coexist, but it's just different. So I wasn't completely against them cooking for us in our home or whatnot, but when it came to it, it was just too much work. So now we got some questions on Threads. If you guys are on Threads, follow us. Why have you decided to meet each other parents now?
Well, it's not really our decision. I think this
Yeah.
ties into like what you were saying earlier of like them showing desire to meet us. We're not like holding our parents away and like, oh, we're uncomfortable with that. Of course, we want to feel supported, and them meeting us and having an interest to meet us is the show of maybe not support, but at least tolerance. Did I tell you that when we first came out and we first announced our relationship, my dad came and visited me like in the first week?
Yeah.
And then he wanted to meet you in that first week.
In the first week?
Yeah. He was like, where is he? Let me meet him. And I'm like, no.
Like I feel like the first week is a lot because everyone needs kind of like a cool off period and like a time to process things. And I feel like if your parents are, you know, kind of grew up with the backgrounds that our parents grew up in, I feel like a year is kind of needed.
Like 6 months?
At least. Even if you think that you're ready, I feel like even going beyond that, make sure that you're fully cooled off, maybe like stick it in the freezer for a little bit. What small thing went unexpectedly well?
The food. I think like when your parents were like making sure I had enough to eat or enough to drink. Also like when they were laughing and like joking about something in Korean I don't really understand, it wasn't like they were trying to exclude me. Like they were like there was an emotional like, you are involved in this even if you don't understand, you're here with us. And I felt like that was something that I was like, this is good. There's a future here. Like maybe I do need to learn more Korean so that I can build a relationship.
I will say, my dad should not pour you beers. You should pour my dad beers.
Oh yeah,
always 100%.
I agree. I was like,
yeah,
and like I didn't do that. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, just like a Asian culture thing.
Yeah, I got to get onto the drinking.
Drinking
rules.
culture. There's so many. I feel like it's honestly not that serious.
Because I like to drink.
Do you share any hobbies or favorite activities with either parents? If so, how did it shape life? Example, fitness, coffee, skincare, cooking, business, fashion, sewing, or driving. Do you share any hobbies? Well, my dad loves fishing.
And that's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, he loves fishing and like going on boats and just like spending his time on the water. So I feel like in the future, that's definitely like an avenue you guys can explore together because I just don't
outdoors. And,
Whereas I just don't have the attention span for that.
Also, you don't really need to talk when you fish.
You don't.
can just
And
I'm reeling some in.
Yeah, and it's actually you're not supposed to talk a lot. So yeah, there's that. And then you with my mom, obviously cooking. She's been cooking for her entire life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure there's little bits of commonalities here and there.
It's going to be food and like relationships surrounding that.
Yeah.
I think food is a great connection point.
100%. I agree. And with that being said, I think that's the end of this episode of you meeting my parents.
Yeah.
Overall, it went well.
Good experience.
Yeah.
Very stressed leading up to it.
Very, very, very stressful. Ryan gets like really clammy hands when he gets like anxious or nervous, and it was pretty bad.
Did your parents comment on it when they shook my hand?
No.
Good, thank God.
Yeah, I
was
didn't
like,
ask him.
I was like,
Yeah.
like the entire time I'm like AC on in the car.
Yeah, but it was great. They loved you. They actually said, Ryan seems like a very kind guy. So that's pretty much all you're going to get.
Yeah.
How's your voice feeling after all that talking?
I think it's been cracking more and more.
Yeah,
And I'm going to go relax it.
but I don't think it sounds bad. It sounds kind of sexy. Give us your best New Yorker smoker impersonation.
Actually, I think this is my New York smoker.
Oh, that's a
voice.
good one.
This is one. Yeah, hey, how's it going? I went to a Knicks game last week, and this guy handed me a pack of cigarettes.
Okay, we can stop. We can stop now.
I don't want to stop. This is the way it feels better.
Thanks for watching. As always, remember to be less shitty.
All right, guys. Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
God. Jesus.